Hello, welcome again to Block 4, Place Value and Ordering Integers and Decimals, Lesson 3. I'll share my screen. So, in your previous lesson, you learned how to write integers up to 1 billion in figures and in words. In this lesson, you're going to work out how to find intervals on a number line. Now, I must say this. This is a very, very important skill. It is so important, especially when you come to the stage when you want to plot graphs, when you have to choose scaling to plot graphs. This is so important, knowing how to figure intervals and knowing how to work with intervals on a number line. So take note, we'll come across it one day. But before we start, I would like you to pause the video and do these retrieval practice questions in 3 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through the questions, here are the answers. Here you were asked to work out these divisions. I'm sure you know how to do this, okay, from primary school. For question 2, you were asked to write or say what you think is wrong with the number line. Well, you can see the number line, the intervals are equal, okay? The intervals are equal. By the way, we're going to talk about what intervals mean because some people get that confused with something else. But you can see the numbers, okay? The difference between the numbers are not the same. So if the intervals are equal, the difference between the numbers should also be equal. Okay, let's do some learning. By the way, let me ask you, what do you think if I ask you how many intervals are between A and B? What would you say? I'll give you some options. What do you think? All right. If you said 5, you're wrong. Maybe you're counting these. Those are not intervals. If you said 7, you're equally wrong because you're counting all those. Yeah, those bars. Those are not the intervals. Intervals are actually the spaces in between. Those are intervals. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are the intervals. I would like to write on it just for emphasis. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 intervals. Okay, so now that you know intervals, let's make some progress in our learning. If I ask you to complete this number line of intervals, how would you go about it? Well, to do these intervals, we would first work out the difference between the numbers on both ends. Of course, we'll also count the number of intervals. And next, we will divide the difference between the start and the finish on the number line by the number of intervals. So now we know that each interval is worth 10. So if each interval is worth 10, then all we need to do if we want to complete this is to add 10 each time. So if we add 10 each time, our number line becomes this. Okay, what about this one? What do you notice? What's the same and what's different? Well, I'm sure you have spotted the way I spotted it straight away that the number line has the same number of intervals as the one above, but the number it starts with is different. It starts with 50. So we use the same method. We're going to work out the difference between 150 and then we divide this number by the number of intervals, which gives us what each interval is worth. And by that amount, we can complete the number line. So we now have 50 divided by 10. So each interval is worth 5. And then to get the next number on the number line and the other numbers, we can just add 5 each time. Okay. Here is another example. Have you spotted the mistake? Have a think. What's the mistake? So let's call him Jack. Jack says there are 4 intervals between 0 and 10, so the number line goes up in 0.4 each time, or increases by 0.4 each time. What mistake has he made? Well, remember, this is a classic mistake that students would make. This should not be done. Once we know the difference, what he should have done should have been 10 divided by the number of intervals, which is 4. So it should be the other way around. Okay? All right. So now what you've learned is you've learned what intervals are. So you know what an interval is if you see one. You've also learned the method of how to find each interval. Okay, so first you work out how to find the value of each interval, I mean to say. So first you work out the difference between the two ends of the number line, and then you divide that number by the number of intervals you have on your number line. Okay, pause the video and answer questions 1 and 2 in 3 minutes. All right, assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through question 1 and 2, you've really done some good practice. Here are the answers. We'll discuss them. For question 1, here is the answer. Rosie is working out the value of each of the intervals on this number line. Here is what Rosie says. There are 4 little marks, so you need to do 100 divided by 4, which is 25. So the number line is going up in 25. Is that correct? Of course, no. By now, we should remember how we work out the value of each interval. We work out the difference, which is 100. And then we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 intervals. So it means we're going to be dividing 100 by 5, not by 4. Here is question 2. Question 2, Amir thinks this number line goes up in tens. Explain why Amir is incorrect. What does the number line goes up in? And label the intervals on the number line. So here you see the difference is 1,000. And you can see we have 10 intervals. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we should be doing 1,000 divided by 10, which is 100. So the intervals is increasing 100 each time. So if we want to complete the number line, we're going to complete it like this. Pause the video and answer questions 3 and 4 in 4 minutes. Or you can do it in 3 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through questions 3 and 4, here are the answers. We'll discuss them. All right, here we were asked to draw a number line from 0 to 10,000 that goes up in 2000s. Okay, so you draw your 0, you draw your 10,000. Then you can start even before you draw the end, 10,000. You can start to go up in 2000. And then make sure they are of equal intervals. Here is question 4. You are asked to complete the number lines. Don't forget the method. You see the difference is 1000 and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we do 1000 divided by 5. So each of these, okay, to complete the number line, we should be having 200 added to the previous each time. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, okay? So we should divide 1000 by 4, which gives us 250. So each time we're going to be adding 250. Okay, let's do some new learning. What about this one? What do you think? Of course, we'll apply the same thing we've learned. So we know the difference is 120. And we can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to do 120 divided by 4. And that should give us 30. So when we complete our number line, this will be 30. We'll add 30 to get the next one. We'll add 30 and that will be our number line completed. But what do you notice? What's different and what's the same? How do we complete this? Now notice that this starts with 0 and here is 120, but we have different intervals. So we have 1, 2, 3. We're going to apply the same method. So we know that the difference is 120, 120. And then we need to divide by the number of intervals, which is 3. So we know that this is different because each interval is worth 40. So that will be 40. And then the next one will be 80. And then we shouldn't forget to complete the last one, which should be 160. Let's look at another example before you have time to practice. If we're asked to work out the difference between A and B, how many ways do you think we can solve this problem? I'll give you time to think. How many different ways can we solve this problem? All right. Here is the one I thought of because I thought that one was relatively obvious, very obvious. So you see, 75 and 105 has 2 intervals. And the difference between 75 and 105 is 30. So I can simply divide 30 by 2 and then that gives me the value of each interval. Remember, the intervals are equal. So I can then use that information to complete my number line, which gives me the numbers I need. And then once I find the numbers, I can then subtract A from B. Another way is I could say, okay, I have the difference 75 to 0 to be 75. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I divide 75 by 5, I will get 15. So that also gives me the value of each interval. And then I can use that information to complete my number line. And then again, I can subtract A from B. Another way could be that I have spotted the difference between 105 and 0. So I can see that. And I can also see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 intervals between 0 and 105. I can then do 105 divided by 7, which will give me 15. I can use that information to complete the number line. And then again, I can subtract A from B to find out the difference between A and B. But here is the last one that you may not have spotted. But that one looks really quick. In fact, it's a very quick solution. Here again, you see there are 2 intervals. We know that the difference between 75 and 105 is 30, but it's 2 intervals. So 2 intervals is worth 30. So very quickly, I can say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 intervals between A and B. So that is the difference. So the difference between A and B is 6 intervals. So if 2 intervals are worth 30, then 6 intervals will be 3 lots of that, which will be 90. A very quick way to get the solution. Okay. All right. So far, we have learned how to use different ways to work out the value of each interval. And this last example shows how you can use different approaches or different methods to solve a problem. Now you can pause the video for 3 minutes and do questions 5 and 6. You can take longer if you wish. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've really thought about the problem you've worked through it, here are the answers. Question 5, you were told to label the number line, which is another way of saying complete the number line. So you can see here, we have 2 intervals. The difference between 0 and 120 is 120. And then we can divide 120 by 2, which gives us 60. So the value of each interval is 60. And then we can use that information to complete the number line. Here we have this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 intervals. And then the difference between 0 and 120 is 120. We can divide 120 by 4 to get the value of each interval. And then we can use that information to complete the number line. Here we can see that the difference is 120, but we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have 3 intervals. So we can use that information to complete this number line when we divide 120 by 3. Here we can see the difference is 120. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 intervals. So to get the value of each interval, we need to divide 120 by 5. And then we can use the information we get to complete the number line. Here is the answer to question 6. Here you're told to work out the missing numbers. The method is the same. We can use the information that we have 300 as the difference between 0 and 300. And then we have 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 intervals. So we can do 300 divided by 3, which will give us 100 as the value for each interval. But we have the second interval to fill in. So if that's 100, that should be 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. We can do the same here. Here we have 65 as the difference. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can do 65 divided by 5, which will give us 13. So the value of each interval is 13. So if this is 13, that has to be 26. Then we can add 13 each time to get the value here. Pause the video and have a go at questions 7 and 8. So time for you to do another practice. You can do this in 4 minutes if you wish. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through the questions, here are the answers. Let's discuss them. Question 7, you were asked to find the difference between A and B. So remember, similar question we did before. So here is the answer. Okay, so the difference between A and B is 35. All right. Another way, see a quick way like that we discussed the other time, the difference between 25 and 35, you can see we have two intervals. The difference is 10. So if two intervals is worth 10, all right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So we have 7. So if we do 10 divided by 7, okay. Sorry. We have two intervals. So each interval is worth 5. Okay. So don't forget, made a mistake there. So we do 10 divided by 2. So each interval is worth 5. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 intervals between A and B, which is actually the difference between A and B. So we can do 7 times 5 to give us the difference between A and B. For question 8, you were asked, here is a number line. What is the number line going up in? So again, it's the same approach. Okay, we have 200 as the difference. Okay, or we can use this one because we really do not know whether that one is 0, right? Let's not take that risk. Okay, so we know this is 200, that's 400. So we know the difference is 200 between 400 and 200. And then we have we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can do 200 divided by 5. Okay. And then that we can use that information to fill the number line. So 200 divided by 5 should be 40. All right. So let's move on. Pause the video and do question 9 in 3 minutes. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through question 9, here are the answers. I'm sure by now you understand how to work with intervals and how to work with the number line. So I'm not going to explain this in detail. And this brings us to the end of our lesson. So far, what we've learned in this lesson is to work out intervals, you just need to look at your number line really well. Look at the difference between the parts of the number line you're working with, count the number of intervals, and divide the difference between the two ends of the numbers you're working with by the number of intervals. Now, I must say this skill is really important when you start to choose scales to plot graphs. Okay? I must say this. When you start to choose scale to plot graphs, this skill is really important. So it's a lesson you may need to revisit in the future if you forget at the point when we start to study plotting graphs. Okay, until next time, take care and bye-bye.